Podcasting today from our studios in Vancouver, BC, Canada. Welcome to the show that confirms safety does indeed have a personality. This is a podcast unlike any other where we like to talk about safety differently and get to know our guests on a completely different level. This is the show where we not only get insight and professional opinion from our special guest on current and ongoing safety themes, but we also get to know them on a very personal level and hear what's on their musical playlist. Today, we are going to find out what kind of music moves our guest and what safety events move our guest as well. This is Safety Debris with me, Richard DeLong, and my Safety Debris partner, Tanya Steele.
Hello, everybody. I am so excited about our very special guest today, Kathy Seabrook, who I have had an opportunity to briefly meet a couple of times to see her in action, changing our world of safety. So I'm so excited to meet with her and talk with her today.
Yeah, me too. So our special guest today is from Mendham, New Jersey. She is described as a futurist, an EHS sustainability influencer, and the founder and CEO of her own consulting business, Global Solutions, Inc. She focuses her work with multinational and U.S. companies across a variety of industry sectors who happen to be focused on, as she likes to describe it, the company's human capital, their people. She also focuses on her clients' supply chain workers, leveraging the value of workplace safety and health impacts on operational, commercial, and health and safety excellence, creating value and sustainable, resilient corporate performance. She is a past president of the ASSP, that's the American Society of Safety Professionals, and holds the designations of CSP in the US, CFIOSH, Chartered Fellow in the UK's Institution of Occupational Safety and Health, and the Euro OSHM. In 2019, the ASSP introduced and began to award the FASSP designation for Society Fellows. It's a recognizable way to identify recipients of the Society's highest honor. She has a number of specialties and interests in the world of health and safety, and today we are going to learn more about those and what is playing back in her personal earbuds. Without further ado, please join Tanya and me in welcoming Kathy Seabrook.
Well, thank you. That's an incredible introduction, Richard and Tanya. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It's all you, that's for sure. You know, and I'm looking at your bio and your resume, Kathy, and I would have to say there's probably some room left for improvement here because we want to officially declare you as a success in OH&S, if you know what I mean, right?
That's very kind of you.
Yeah, of course. I'm just kidding with you. In fact, I loved reading about your experience and your accomplishments. I'm very impressed with it all. Usually it's Tanya confessing that with all our guests that, you know, she's over the top with them. And but today it's my turn. So I'm the one that is truly impressed by your accomplishments and your successful career. So welcome to our show. And thanks for joining us, Kathy.
Yeah. So Kathy, first to start off with, we're just going to cut right to some fun stuff because we're going to get into some of the professional stuff and some of the great things that you're doing. But we ask all of our guests what their favorite song or genre of music is, and because we want to get to know you more personally. And so we asked you, what is your favorite genre of music? And you said to us, I like a lot of different music. I like music that makes one want to move. Specifically, you said, which is my favorite, happy music with a great beat.
Yeah.
I love that so much. And so, Richard, why don't you play us a few snippets of that happy music for Kathy?
I'd love to. Here we go. Listen up, folks.
Father, help us and some guidance from above. These people got me questioning, where is the love?
Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me, that go sail. Lights go out and I can't be saved. Tides that I tried to swim against pulled me down upon my knees. Oh, I beg and please.
So there we go. A little snippet of some of her favorites, the Black Eyed Peas, some Bobby Darin, and Coldplay. Hip hop sounds of dance and pop music from the Black Eyed Peas. And Where is the Love? Bobby Darin's 1959 hit, taking us way back beyond the sea. That's hopefully not dating you there, Kathy. And Coldplay with one of her favorites and one of my favorites, Clocks. So yeah, great songs. And so any reason why some of these make you feel really good?
So Black Eyed Peas in particular, that song, That's like one of my all-time favorite. I'm a social justice gal, and I think
Okay.
anyone who's in safety and health is, to some level,
Yeah.
socially justice oriented. And I just love that song. Bobby Darin, yeah, that predates me by a lot. However, thank you, Richard. However, it's just fabulous dancing music,
It
right?
is fun.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about beat, and it's just happy, and it's just, I don't know, it's a classic. And Coldplay, oh my gosh, what's not to like about Coldplay?
No kidding. Yeah.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
And
Hands down.
Martin's amazing. And that band, oh, I mean, they're so bright if you actually know their lyrics and read their lyrics. Incredible meaning. So
Yeah.
yeah,
They're clever. Yeah.
very clever. Very, very, very bright people.
Speaking of bright, we have one in the room with us, Tanya, and I think we want to kind of delve into her professional side, maybe.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So we know, I mean, we've been raving on you already since you've been here, and before we started, we were already in awe of you being here. We truly are, you truly are extraordinary, and so you are extremely successful practicing health and safety as a professional. So, in your opinion, what are some of the top skills that you think a safety professional needs to be successful going into 2021 or even 2022?
Yeah. Oh, wow. So I would say, so first of all, thank you. You guys, you're the best thing for my ego today. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you. But seriously, I think having a personality is really important.
Mm.
Tenacious, being persistent. My favorite quote and people know me, is about connecting the dots. And I guess for me, I was just born with this gift, and it's a great gift. But it's being able to see where dots connect where most people can't see it. So for me, because we're talking about me in terms of what has worked and connecting those dots, Steve Jobs, right? Maybe not the greatest personality person, but in terms of a business person, and somebody that influenced the world, and even in his passing, he
100%.
continues to
Yeah.
influence the world. He talks about connecting the dots, and he talks about being able to see a future and connecting the dots. And I have my favorite analogy I love, and I'm talking to two Canadians who totally get this. In other countries, they sort of understand it, but they don't. Wayne Gretzky. You guys know Wayne Gretzky?
You betcha we do.
Right? Big hockey people. So, highest, scoring today, he still holds the record. And when asked, why? What did you do? What's your trick? Kind of what you're asking me, right? What is your thing? How did you do that? He basically talked about the fact that he never skates to where the puck is. He
Mhm.
skates to where he thinks that the puck is going to go. So, I mean, it's like, connecting all these things in his head instantly and saying, this is where I need to be. And so he attributed that to his success. And for me, I would say it's the same. So between old Wayne and Steve Jobs, I feel like I'm in really good company in terms of understanding their success. And so what I've done, globalization. So I was based in the UK for almost 10 years of my life, working in London and then working out in the countryside. And it was domestic versus international operations, no matter where you were, whether you're a Canadian-based company or whether you're a US, Japanese, Taiwanese. And then you had the rest of the world. That's just how companies looked at it.
Mhm.
And when I moved back from the UK, Europe, they're different now, but Europe was one. And this whole concept of globalization wasn't a thing, and especially in safety and health. And I'm like, no, you got to manage safety and health the same around the world, whether you're in China or whether you're in Venezuela or whether you're in Texas or whether you're in Ontario, right? You've got to manage the rest of your people in the same way. You've got to have the same level of standards. So anyway, globalization, management systems. I was always at like the forward part of that curve. And so when I talk about persistence, when I talk about tenacity, I will talk about patience, but I won't tell you that I have it. But
Isn't that the
when
truth?
you're at the leading edge of change, you gotta do that. So you can ask me another question, but I do have some other thoughts on that initial question if you're open to that.
Yeah,
Of
no,
course.
please keep going.
Yeah. Carry on.
So for me, I think that safety professionals, this is what's exciting about what we do. We have the opportunity, if we choose, to basically engage with anybody in our organization. And I mean the CEO,
Yep.
big
Mhm.
little organization, the CEO, down to that person who's closest to the work, right? Who actually is the closest in our world to the hazard, and everyone in between. We have to be able to speak the language of our business leaders, right? Boards of directors,
Mhm.
CEOs, suites, operational leaders, as well as the people on the ground. And we have to be able to mine out that information to know where those hazards are, to know where those risks are. But most importantly, we have to get the heck out of the way. And we have to let the people and the organization come up with the solutions and figure out, not us. And we get in the way a lot of times. And I don't know why. I guess it's job security. I'm not really sure. But I really have found, when you're asking me what success is, I have learned that my two greatest skills. One is asking good questions, and that's taken a long time to hone all of that.
Yeah.
And the second is actually listening to the answers.
Mm.
Those, to me, I think those are our superpowers as safety and health professionals, because man, can we connect dots when we listen to the people in the organization.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. Now, when you say sort of get out of the way, what does that look like? Like if we have our listeners who are listening and they're, driving in their car and they're going to work today and they're like, okay, I need to get out of the way. How would I do that? Okay, I know I need to ask questions. I know I need to listen more, but what else would that look like?
So getting out of the way means we're not the ones that are managing safety and health on a daily basis. It's the operations folks that are doing that. And so many times and I think we do it positively, there's nothing negative, but so many times we say, oh, we need to fix it because we know what the hazards are. And actually we know what the control mechanisms should be. And oh, by the way, hierarchy of controls, I know I need to figure out eliminating. And if I'm not engaging those people that are working, like the foreman and the supervisor and whoever's making those decisions as to that product line or that service, I am in the way. I am the one that is the barrier to coming up with the best solution, the best control mechanism. It's me. I don't have all the answers. But that group of people, I mean, folks that are familiar with lean and lean manufacturing and the Kaizens and, the event that you do, you don't get input from one person, you get input from a collective and you end up with the best output. So that's what I mean about us getting out of the way. And we were born and raised to think this is our job, this is our expertise. So we need to provide solutions when in fact we need to be leading a group of people to develop solutions. So honestly, that has allowed me to kind of go everywhere in a company and not be afraid, frankly, especially when I was in my 20s, going, oh my gosh, I've got to talk to the managing director here. Just come up with the right questions.
Yeah.
So, Kathy, you mentioned something just a few minutes ago that kind of struck a chord with me, and you talk about what makes a safety person successful, and having a positive personality and an approachable personality really strikes with me. That's how I've succeeded in my career. And I think we can all attest to the fact that we don't know everything and we don't have all the answers. But the one thing I could do was I could try and get along with everyone and try to get to know them and be approachable for others and allow them to approach me. And so I've always leaned on my own personality that way. And I've been a bit of a chameleon, and I think that's successful. And you also mentioned that Wayne Gretzky being, the leader in his trade, and still holds some records and probably will for a long time to come, if not forever. He said his dad had taught him to be the best that he could be in life, not just in hockey, but as a person, and be the best person that you could possibly be. And so, and I think that also comes out in his personality when we see him in the public eye, all the things that he does for charities and organizations and just life in general. He seems like a nice guy, one of the guys that would live next door to you. I got a question for you. So where do you see the future of our industry? Where is the health and safety profession going, in your opinion?
Well, this is kind of aligns with kind of our role as safety and health professionals. We are never going away. Safety and health is never going away. Look around us. We got COVID.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
It's not going away. And who knew, right? And this is just one of many pandemics we may have in the future. I mean, I don't mean to say that, but companies and governments and people need to be prepared that their masks are probably a way of the future. In many cases, I think there's a lot of people, even post COVID, that will always wear their mask on an airplane.
Mm-hmm.
Not before, but
Yeah,
now.
but they will.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, sorry, ask me the question again. That you just, man, really hit on something that was like, I had to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm kind of curious to know, in your opinion, where do you see the future of our health and safety profession going?
Thank you. So at the end of the day, safety and health's not going away, but the way we manage it, that's changing. And the way that businesses are aligning to understand the value that safety and health brings to their organization. So typically companies, they're in business to turn a profit, right? At the end of
Right.
the day, if they're publicly traded, the purpose of the company is to bring value, financial value, to their stakeholders, which specifically has always been the investment community, us, as we invest, as well as the big investors. And what's happening is this confluence in the world. And if we, as safety and health professionals, really start understanding this business environment we're operating in, we can align and we can ride this wave. And again, COVID has really opened the eyes to every business. Every person in the world now knows what the word PPE, or the abbreviation PPE, means. Before, it was just geeky safety speak, right?
That's right.
For the company, I mean, it was our own lingo. This is an opportunity for us. So as I see trends, we're going to continue to have new hazards, especially as new products and services are developed, as new raw materials are created. Nanotechnology is no longer new, but that was new at one point, and that produced obviously, as we know, health issues and other issues that we didn't even understand. So there's always going to be that technical side, and there's going to be that evolution. But to me, it's the management of, and I know that, I think, Richard, you'd asked about, safety too, and some of the other philosophies. And I
Mhm.
think all of those philosophies are very good because they are really engaging people. They're engaging the whole workforce. They're looking, the concept of looking at safety differently, right? The systems thinking, which I'm a
Right.
big systems thinking gal. I mean, to me, it's all about integrated management systems, not just ISO 45001, not just quality, 9001, or environmental 14001. It is about the business. And that the business, like if you have an ERP, if you're trying to figure out where your finance, your resources are, enterprise resource processes, where they are in your company, that's a management system. Your maintenance group, they manage your management system. Their risk, if you will, is unscheduled downtime, right? That's like, they don't want that. And how do they manage? Well, they manage your management system, planning, right? And the preventive maintenance and inspections and plan, do, check, act concept. So, and this is what I try to help organizations understand is that integration, that interdependencies, which is systems thinking. And so, we talk about safety differently and safety too, and the reality is it's not about safety, it's about the business. And that the business, when people say future, the future is every decision that is made by a company has considerations for the safety and health of their workers in everything that is done. And it's not like a bolt-on or oh gosh, did we think to ask the safety folks? It's like the safety folks are there. I mean, that to me is the future. But here's the rub. If I can just one more. Here's the rub. The rub is we, as safety professionals, are not future fed. We don't get this. We don't understand this. And I say this collectively, not individually, but collectively. And so that's where we need to go. That's where we need to get to really understand that business environment in which we're operating.
I love, there's a couple things that you said there that, well, first of all, PPE, right, is no longer, a word that people don't understand. I remember here, I know that you're in the US right now, but in BC, in the province that we're in, Dr. Bonnie Henry, who is our health, provincial health medical person that was giving us stuff, when she said the word hierarchy of controls on the news, on live TV, I almost
What?
jumped out of my seat on my couch. And I'm like, people are not going to know what that looks like or what that means. And I just it was like this whole world of normalizing safety just to everybody. And so now when I go into a little retail store, they're talking about safety. We've always talked about safety in heavy industry and construction and oil and gas and manufacturing, but you're seeing, the Fairmont hotels, the big box stores. You're seeing walk-in little stores, the little boutique stores that have little like COVID procedures on the front door and the hierarchy and the PPE. And it's really cool to see that change begin to happen. But my favorite thing that you were talking about is the business side of it, managing safety around business. And it's true, this might not be our last pandemic. And we can't, in economy wise, we can't continue on the path that we're continuing. So if I want to stay in business and I want to be able to go through something like this in the future, I need to manage the safety of my workers and my clients and my customers, so that we can continue to make lots of money, hopefully millions and millions of dollars, so it keeps our economy going. So in saying that, and this is going to be a little bit off of our topic, but I just love that because nobody's ever really said this out loud, is safety professionals should know a little bit about business. And right. And a lot of them don't. They're just like, this is safety. And, they'll say things like, oh, my company's all about the bottom line. And we're like, well, that's great. They're supposed to be, but the bottom line and safety are one and the same. And so what would you say to somebody that is a safety professional? They're kind of in the middle of their career. They've done safety this certain way that we've been doing it for years. And now I need to learn about business. Where should I go? What should I take? What should I read? What should I listen to?
Well, that's a great question. See, you're very good at questions too.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So, and this is what I ask every seminar I do on this, every webinar I do, and the one I just did. I always say, okay, if they're working in a company, I always say, so tell me about your company. What do you know about your company's goals and objectives? And if they look at me and go, no, then I point them in the direction of their annual financial report. Get a lot of information, exactly what's going on in that CEO and that board of directors' head. And you also know the operational leaders. And then if they're a forward-thinking company, and a lot of companies, it's a license to do business these days, is to have a corporate responsibility or a sustainability report. And so if that's the case, man, you can glean a lot from that report across the business, right? So one, you're going to understand what's material to an organization, and all that means in business speak is that the highest consequence risk to the business, that should try to make this really simplistic, that it's going to impact the business and the decisions for all the stakeholders. So communities, customers, investors, your workers as to whether or not they're going to want to work with you. So, talent acquisition and retention, all of those things kind of come into play. But what it'll also tell you is how your company values safety and health. Because in every sustainability report, if they are aligned with the Global Reporting Initiative framework, which they typically, I think it's like 98% of the sustainability and CR reports are, they have to report on safety and health. So you will know about your company if you go to that sustainability report or the annual report. And if all they're doing is reporting on accidents and fatalities, it's not a value. It's a company, your company is definitely more forward thinking when they start talking about identifying those risks and talk about the plans they have in place to mitigate those risks, whether it's new risk assessment processes or incident investigation, whatever it happens to be. But that's like where you start. You kind of start, I always say, start wherever the person is. And all this stuff, you can read a zillion things, but it's not going to synthesize until you can apply it. And the practical application is your company. And then there's a lot of stuff out there. I mean, I'll plug myself because there's nothing, I couldn't find anything out there. So if you go to my, it's just Google Kathy Seabrook and the International Labor Organization. And if you do that, there's they asked me to do a think piece, again, futuristic, forward thinking. And so I connected the dots for people, and it's short and sweet. So you can get like a real simple primer on how these things connect: safety, and health and safety, and this concept of human capital, which we'll talk later about. But that kind of gives you perspective, and that's a good starting point, because the reality is there's not a whole lot of body knowledge out there.
Right. So, when we were talking about the concepts and themes of safety, like safety 2 and that sort of thing, and You mentioned it's not necessarily about safety alone. When we talk about safety, it's about the business. That's the bottom line. I suppose it's also important to identify the fact that yes, it is about the business, as long as the business recognizes the value and truly appreciates what safety does for them and their bottom line. Isn't that true?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And it's funny, Richard, when you say this, it's sometimes it feels like a quantum leap, but the concept of value, when we think of value, it is like intrinsic, and it's like something in your heart kind of thing. But in the world of business, value equates to money. It equates to profit. But what is starting to transition is value based on what you just said, Richard. So, I mean, really, truly a sense that, your employees, your workers, they're no longer just a cost, right? So you can furlough them during COVID, or you can, right, downsize, whatever you're going to do, or, keep them off site. It's actually, what do they bring to the business that if you didn't have them, you wouldn't have your business. And that's a whole mental model change for a lot of businesses. But I'm telling you, the bigger companies are starting to get that. And people say, oh yeah, but I live in a small, or work in a small, medium-sized enterprise. And I get that. But the trickle down effect is beginning to happen because there's a lot of suppliers and supply chain, and there's an expectation of this. But yeah, I totally am aligned in your thinking, because it's not just the safety and health professional being able to communicate with the board, but it's the board and the C-suite leadership being able to meet halfway, and it starts with the people, and people don't like that term human capital, but investors and the world of capitalism, it's one of the capitalisms, right? Including manufacturing capitalism, or capital, human capital, natural capital, IP capital. All of those are part of what an organization, how they're valued in the business world. And this that I'm telling you, there'll be a lot of your people that are going to listen to this podcast and their eyes will glaze over. But this is what I'm talking about that we need to know. And you need to be able to be an investor, right? You don't need to know it to this level, but we need to be able to have those conversations to help the boards and help our business leaders see the value and the value that you just described, Richard, not just the financial value, but the intrinsic value of people that are working in an organization.
Yeah, nicely said.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so we have moments, and I have moments, Richard has moments, I know, because we work together, and I'm assuming you have moments too, where you're really trying to get these business leaders to get it. You're trying to get them to get it. You're trying to lead them down a path. You're trying to ask questions, but you're trying to lead them, and they just don't get it. And I'm assuming you have bad days as well. Like
Oh, never.
Yes. Okay.
Oh,
Never.
that's
You
good to
never
hear.
have a bad day.
Oh dear.
So the question is because we know that you love music. And so if you're having a bad day, you're having that day that you're trying to communicate, it's not working, whether it's to workers or to management or to business or to the board, and you're sitting in your car and you need to cheer yourself up, what do you listen to?
Earth, Wind, and Fire, September. That is my song. That is the happiest song ever. I cannot keep sitting in my chair. If I'm in the car, my head's bobbing or something, or I'm clicking my fingers. But it like instantly kind of just flips the switch for me. Because, doing this change or, transformational change in the world and with companies, and it's just not for the weak-hearted. It's not, both of you all do, right? All of us, this is what we're doing. We are org change people. That's what we're doing. And it's not easy.
Well, I'm going to pull up my crystal ball here, Tanya. I think I see a happy dance coming on. I'm not sure, but wait a second. Yeah, I think here it is. Yeah. Here it goes. Woo!
Do you remember when it was September? Love was changing the minds, tender, while chasing the clouds away. Your love lifted me higher than I've ever been lifted before. So keep it up, quench my desire.
We were staying in Paris to get away from your parents, and I thought, wow, if I could take this in a shot right now, I don't think that we could work this out on the terrace. I don't know if it's fair, but I thought, how could I let you fall by yourself? Well, I'm wasted. Think about how many times I had fallen. Spirits are using me, larger voices calling. What heaven brought you and me cannot be forgotten. I have been around the world.
Oh, yeah. What great music in your playlist. Absolutely fantastic.
I'm having a hard time sitting still. Yes, yes.
Yeah, some great tunes. So, what we just heard there, I'd love to be able to play all the music from start to end, but we just don't have the time, unfortunately. But Crosby, Stills, and Nash, Southern Cross, sometime in the early 80s, they released that. One of my favorite songs of theirs, absolutely. We also heard from the Chainsmokers with Paris. That has got a nice groove to it, eh? It's nice and tight. And of course, Higher and Higher, your love keeps lifting me. That's a good old classic from Jackie Wilson. And of course, your all-time favorite happy song from Earth, Wind, and Fire and September. So have you ever seen Earth, Wind, and Fire in concert?
God, yes. Absolutely. Several times. They are amazing. Obviously, some people have passed on, but Mike Bailey, he is still good, and he can still sing.
Yeah.
And can I say Paris is like my favorite place in the world? So
Is it?
that's why I love that song.
No,
Yes.
sorry, we're gonna have to edit that out. Sorry. No. Well, speaking of Earth, Wind, and Fire, I've had the pleasure of meeting a few of the guys from the horn section in person. Yeah, it was very cool. It was in an elevator in Montreal, and I was waiting to get on, and these three dudes standing there with these beautiful big fur coats. This was back in the 80s. And I was admiring their coats, and I said, "Hey, nice attire there, gents." And they're like, "Yeah, man." Da, 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 da. And we're talking and talking and talking, and found out they were part of the horn section from Earth, Wind, and Fire. And we thought,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
they were in town because they were touring with Phil Collins, and Phil Collins jammed a lot with and used them as musicians on his recordings. And of course, as we're waiting to get into the elevator should open, and who's in the back of the elevator but Phil Collins? And so it was like the greatest day of my life.
My, that's quite a story.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So it was fun. Yeah, it was fun to meet them. And of course, as we're riding up, they're talking about the show, and you come into the show, mate, and all that stuff. And I said, "No, unfortunately not." And they said, "We'll get you some tickets." So we went up to their floor.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
This is
they had the whole
exciting.
floor. They had the whole floor booked out. And of course, Phil had the floor above them. So he stayed on the elevator and said, my boys will take care of you. He says, "We'll see you." So we went up to their floor. They gave me 6 tickets to the show, 6 backstage passes. And of course, when I went down to tell some of my mates that we were going to the show, most of them didn't believe me. So I said, "Be careful what you say, because I'm holding the tickets." And here they are. And it was a lot of fun. So I've met a lot of musical performers from my radio career, but absolutely, that was one of my first times meeting celebrities from the music world. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Man, that's a great story.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was cool.
It's a great story.
Isn't it? That's a great story. And that's Easy Lover, I think, is the song that Philip Bailey and
That's right.
did together.
Oh,
Yeah.
what a
Again,
great song that is.
peppy,
Yeah.
a peppy, happy song.
Yeah, I love that tune. That was a great tune.
I
Good
can't
selection.
believe you know that just by listening to a story. Oh, I know what he's saying. I know that song. That's awesome.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, yeah. She's an Earth, Wind, and Fire fan. She'll know who Philip Bailey is for certain.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
He's the voice.
So, I think I was going to say we could probably play some more music, but we'll have to wait.
We have to wait.
It's not all fun and games, Tanya. You just, I've got a question, because I was looking at your bio there, Kathy, and I'm kind of curious. And it looks like it doesn't look like, in fact, you did go. You went to university and you got yourself a chemistry degree. So I'm kind of curious about that. When you came out of university with that, were you thinking safety, or had you thought, maybe if I want to go down safety, do I want to be a hygienist, or do I want to do what you're doing now?
Gosh, that's just the best question. So how did I find safety, right? Well, safety found me. honest. So background chemistry on campus, there you have different companies that are coming to do interviews. I'd already done, I did research during one summer, decided I would never wanted to do that. Also did some bench chemistry on internships, did not want to do that.
I like that sound effect.
No. So here's this financial institution coming on campus saying that, they wanted to interview math majors, chemistry majors, engineering majors, and physics majors, biology majors. I'm like, really? And so I thought, I need some interview experience on it. This is the honest truth. And so I went. Well, the lady who was their HR person said, well, honestly, I really don't know that much about this particular job, but I like you. Would you come? And I lived in Virginia. When you come to Richmond, Virginia, and interview with the engineering folks. And I'm like, why not? So I did. And honestly, this is how I found safety. I was going to have a company car. I was going to travel the state of Virginia. And I had no earthly idea what the job was. And I just jumped into the deep end because, at that time, the markets were really hard in terms of jobs. And this job was paying pretty darn well. That's how I found safety. And then the rest is history. It was all about risk. It's all about, I had to go to a company and I had to assess the risk. I had to be able to come back and tell the financial institution this is good risk or bad risk, thinking about workers' compensation, right? So the people side, but also product side, right? Product safety and the people and the public. So I had to ask a lot of questions and mine out a lot of information. And that was, wow, I was 20 years old. That was like the basis of everything I just described, at the beginning of this, that really taught me those skills. And also the concept of risk, because in the United States, it was hazards. And it still is for a lot of companies. So, so that's how safety found me. And honestly, it's the people side. And I learned that I really I had that skill to connect the dots like we talked about. And that's because you talk to all these different people in a company and then try to size up the company, right? In terms of a good risk or bad risk. And so you had to listen, you had to do all those things. Little did I know, those skills would come in handy.
That is so great. And a lot of people find themselves falling into safety because really safety hasn't been a profession up until fairly recently that we're actually calling it sort of a profession now. So a lot of people fell into it. And I kind of have a little bit of the same story because when you were talking about personality and how important personality is for safety, it reminded me when I was in grade 10 and I wasn't a very good student. And one of my teachers called me into her office and sat me down and looked at me like straight in my eye to have a serious conversation and said, Tanya, in the real world, you're not going to make it on your personality. You need to learn skills. And I just thought, well, if she could see me now,
right?
Yeah.
I did make it on my personality because you need to have personality to be in safety.
Oh, you are so right. I mean, you just have to make people feel at ease to actually talk to you and spill their guts. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, to actually tell you where those hazards are, or actually tell you that, although this is the rule, nobody ever does it.
Yeah.
And that takes trust, right?
It does.
And personality engenders trust. I mean, I feel that about you, talking to you.
That's awesome.
Well, you know what, Tanya, a funny thought came to mind when you were describing your situation and that conversation with that teacher of yours. And she said, Tanya, you're in grade 10 now. And I was going to say, for the third time. And so this is not going to work for you with your personality.
It was so close. That could have been the conversation.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, of course. But it comes to mind, you got to share the giggles too. I mean,
absolutely.
Now, interesting that you started really at a bank talking about risk for companies. And that's how you've connected this business and safety risk, that it is literally one and the same. That's quite fascinating that's the angle that you took when you came into safety. So, and I know that you're doing a lot of sustainability stuff. That's how I got to meet you originally, was when that sustainability piece really started with the ASSP. It used to be ASSE at that time, but now ASSP. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about people who what is sustainability? You talking about recycling, or like, what do you mean by sustainability and safety? What does that
Three
mean?
R's, Tanya, the three
Three
R's.
R's, yeah.
Ooh, I like those 3 R's. I'm a big 3R gal. So this is what we set out to change, the mindset that the three of us just described. Sustainability isn't just the environment, that whole natural concept of environment. We're all interconnected. Everything is interdependent. If you don't have people, right, the environment, well, actually, the environment's going to survive long after we're all gone. After the dinosaurs and everything else, the environment's still something about Mother Nature. But honestly, for us, to appreciate and how we're impacting the environment, we need to be able to work. We need to be able to satisfy our own needs, that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And in particular, ASSP, they asked me to chair this task force, the board did. So we want to know, is there a correlation between, safety and health of people and this sustainability? So a task group, we basically set out, we had a couple corporates and we had the the environmental practice specialty of ASSP. And we all got together and said, what does this look like? And we did a lot of research, went out there. And if you go back to the UN and to the definition of sustainable development, it is so broad, it is so wide, it is not focused just on environment. And so it's about people, it's about society, it's about communities, it's about the environment. And it's all about leaving for the next generation what we have had in our generation. And that just flung the door wide open for us. And since 2000, and I think the Center for Safety and Health Sustainability was launched, it's 2011, and CSSE, as you know, was a parent partner in that group, along with the two other organizations. And that's all we worked on. We did research, white papers, to try to have this connectivity between what we thought were just workers, right? And then all of a sudden we hit into this world of a human capital, and how human capital and having a company that is sustainable over time, right? That is not impacting people, not impacting the environment, not impacting, property, etc. And that's all the stuff we do. So that was sort of the evolution. And now I'm one of the advisors to the Capitals Coalition, which is a global coalition of organizations, like almost 400 plus, that are really trying to do what we're talking about here today, is change that mental model from cost of a worker to the value of the worker, kind of taking us back to Richard, to your original point, and having companies really start to understand what their real purpose is, and that they have the ability to influence humanity, society, in the work that they do. So, bookends, right? So very, very beginning, where it was just environment, to we're still evolving. This is a meta trend, and it is happening because those influencers, those motivators and incentives from the investment community is, it's fast forwarding. Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock this year, as last year, right, sent a letter to the CEOs and specifically talked, he was focusing on climate risk, but then he broke it wide open and talked about the social side of sustainability, which is us, people, and their health and safety.
Right. So I want to go back a little bit, and you mentioned earlier that you spent some time in the UK, about 10 years or so. So I'm just curious, were you doing some research then? Were you a consultant, or were you an employee, and what brought you to the UK? How'd you end up there?
So I worked for a financial institution, and by the way, it's the insurance industry. But they do a little bit of everything. So they're technically financial institution, but the area that I was working in was the insurance piece. And so I was an expat. I worked in London on Fenchurch Street. For the first time around, almost 5 years. That's where I had my first daughter, who is actually a citizen. She's got dual citizenship.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I'm a very global gal.
That's awesome. Does she have an accent?
She doesn't. She came back when she was 22 months.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
But I have
Yes,
to
she
tell
does.
you, she used to,
It's an American accent.
she does still use some of the words. And of course, when I came back, it was nappies and it was dummies for, pacifiers.
That's right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was embedded. And then the second time I went over, I went over as a consultant, and then had looked over there. So it was really cool because I started Global Solutions International, which was a UK-based company. So I basically got to be the translator when multinational companies were trying to figure out, as they were doing audits and things like that in the UK, what does this look like if you're an American company or a Canadian company? I had a Canadian client as well. What does that look like? Because, you know, the regulations in the UK are so different. So yeah, so lived and worked, was an expat, became a mom, my first time being a mom. Yeah, all in the UK. And
How
oh,
many-
by the way, if you want to know my single greatest success, are my 2 daughters, Kate and Isabel.
Oh, isn't that nice?
That was going to be my next question. How many daughters? You said your first daughter, so that's so you have, and are they older now and grown up and taking on the world, or?
I'd like to say yes. They are in their own worlds. They're both doing very different things, but they are. I mean, they're so different, right? One of them is, I don't know. She's a connector. She's just like I am. And the other one is she's a connector, but she's this deep thinker, right? She connects things, and she's a big social justice person as well. So I foresee both of them, I mean, are big influencers. They just haven't probably figured out how big yet, but yeah, they're pretty cool.
They will. Of course they're cool because you're their mom, and that's already makes them cool. You can tell them I said that too. You can say, hey
Nice.
girls, you're cool because I'm cool. I was told that today.
So they're in their 20s. One has just graduated from uni and last year. And yeah, so they're finding their way in the world, and they're just really good-hearted people. And I think that's a good thing. I think you can change the world. And, you know, Richard, you said this, right? I think it's the heart thing. If you've got this, and honestly, Tanya, you know, it's about, you know, having that personality. I don't know.
But
Yeah.
isn't that how we know that you're, you know, success as a parent? I'm not a parent, but I can, you know, my mom and other parents, I'm successful because my kids are good, and they, you know, they got good heart, and whatever they do, whatever they touch, no matter how big or small, will be successful because of their heart.
Totally
Yeah.
agree.
I was going to say that, yeah, your daughters are obviously of the age that they can think you're cool again, because it wasn't too long ago they probably thought in their late teens, they're like, oh boy, right? Like every other parent, you're so uncool for a certain time.
And a safety geek on top of it, and a
Yeah,
chemist.
Oh boy.
Oh, no, I think it's worse than that. It's like safety. What exactly is that?
Yeah, exactly.
You do what?
But
Now they get it, actually.
yeah. So, but what I think is what is timeless is the word cool, and you know it came out in the 50s maybe, and it's evolved. It hasn't evolved; it's remained the status quo over decades. And where I'm going with this?
Yeah, where are you going with this?
No idea. You know, I have an idea. So, of course, I wanted to tie it into your UK experience because, and we're going to tie into music again. We obviously ask you in advance about your music preferences and some things that you've done with music and what you love about music and some fond concerts. And you did share a few concerts with us that were extremely cool. I'm really impressed with where you went to see these performers play, and actually the performers that you got to see. So if you recollect what you had jotted down in your email, go ahead, Kathy, and tell us 3 or 4 of the concerts that really are very special to you.
Well, you're definitely testing me in terms of my email, but yes.
Oh, there you go.
Amazing.
Well, I'll help you
Rolling
out.
Stones at Wembley Stadium. I mean, it doesn't get any better
Oh,
than that.
my goodness.
Unless you get to see Eric Clapton, which I never got. How people told me, oh, you know, he makes that guitar sing. I never understood that until I was at Royal Albert Hall in London, and
Nice.
fairly close. And oh my gosh, he was amazing. So Eric Clapton and who? Oh, Adele. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I think Adele's the greatest thing. She's just the greatest. Her voice is unbelievable, and she's so cheeky.
She's lovely.
Love her.
She is cheeky, isn't she? Yeah,
That's what I love
she's
about her.
perfectly British. Yes.
Very British. And where did I see? Madison Square Garden is where I saw her.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. Well, you know what? The Royal, you said Royal Albert Hall for,
London.
yeah, that's the perfect venue for Eric Clapton.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like there's no seat there that you feel that far away from that stage.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful hall. Tanya, you've seen Adele in concert.
I have. Yes. I got to see her when she came to Vancouver. It was probably by far my favorite concert I'd ever been to. I'm a country girl by heart, so I go to a lot of country type concerts. But I had a friend who loved Adele. I listened to Adele, but when I went to her conference, I literally became a screaming fan. Yeah, like literally, yeah, yeah.
And I
Anything in
giggle. I
particular?
giggle.
Anything in particular? Why?
Why, you know what? She was so down to earth, like, and she laughed at herself. I just enjoy that about her personality, that sort of playful thing. I mean, starting off her show with, well, if you came to cheer up, all my songs are sad, so you're in the wrong concert. I was just
That's
like,
Hear her
funny.
say that. I can hear her say that. She laughs.
yeah, and she just
Oh
got
gosh,
down
that
on
is
her,
funny.
you want to take pictures with me? She just got down and in the group. And of course her voice there's just nothing like it. There is just nothing like it. And so I did see her. But what I also loved about, and I know, we're going to play a little bit of that. But before you do, Richard, Richard was telling me that, of course, the Eric Clapton that you had
Mm.
seen him, you love him. Richard does too. And my dad was in music. And when I was very little, when Eric Clapton was just starting out, my dad sold Fender guitars. And so Eric Clapton got a Fender guitar from him a couple of times. And so as a young kid, I was in elementary school. I'm pretty sure I was in elementary school. My dad would come home with these bags that said like Eric Clapton on it. So I had like Eric Clapton t-shirt, Eric Clapton bag, Eric Clapton hat. And I had no idea. I just had no idea who this kid was, because he was probably obviously young at the time. And so I'm proud to say that my dad very much knew him when he first started out and sold him a couple guitars. And
That's
so
cool.
I thought that was really super cool. Anyway,
That's a cool story.
I just wanted to be part of the cool in the group here.
But you are cool. That goes by
Yeah.
definition. You are cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're all cool here. And speaking of cool, let's keep the cool going because we can't go to the concerts yet. They will start up again. And I know they're going to fill them up, those arenas and halls, when we get past COVID. But we're going to play little snippets of some of those artists you had mentioned that you enjoyed, Kathy. So we're going to start off with a little Adele.
You've gotta stop holding me the way you do. Oh, honey, if I'm not the one for you, why have we been through what we have been through? It's well, I never got to dollar past sunset. Always been a hole in my pants. Never made the school mama happy. Never blew a second chance on love.
How many times must I tell you, babe? How many bridges I've got to cross? How many times must I explain myself? Or I can talk to the boy.
Good old Slow Hand. Yeah, Eric Clapton. That's one of my favorite songs of his, Forever Man. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a beauty. Also in there, we heard from the Stones going back to 1972. That was from their Exile on Main Street, which they recorded while in exile in jolly old France. And that's Keith Richards who's singing lead there. And he didn't do it often, but he did it a few times. And that was one of the songs, Happy. And We're Happy. And of course, Adele right off the top. And what a lovely vocal she has. So yeah, nice selections there, Kathy. You know what? If we were to hang out, you'd have to have two separate sets of earbuds that would plug into your one, music player so that I could hear it too. So we'd be walking down the street and talking. You'd have a couple of buds in yours. I'd have a couple of mine, but they all be connected to your phone. So we'll have to figure out how to do that. In fact, we'll have to do it three ways because there's three of us here on the show with 6 earbuds coming out of one playlist. That's crazy, but that would be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure Steve Jobs or Apple will have some sort of way for us to bump phones real soon to be able to share music, right?
Hey, I like it.
Talking about
I like that thought.
Yeah, I like that thought too. So ISO 45001, you're involved with that. You're on the committee, international committee, is it? Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that. What's coming out of that you're excited to share?
There's all kinds of things. First of all, the concept that we have an internationally global consensus document that says this is basically what a management system, this is what it should look like. And so that's the ISO 45001. It's just a number, but it's this concept of this is what you need to have in order to have a management system. And I could spend hours talking about that, but we're not going to. So I guess what I really want to share, and I'm on the chair, the chair's advisory group. So I'm a U.S. delegate to ISO. It's actually to the technical committee, working on ISO 45001, which has been published. But we've got a family of standards that are coming out. So we're working on psychological health and safety. We're working on performance evaluation, which is one of the standards that I'm going to be involved in. We're looking at because every 5 years you got to revise a standard. So we're looking at what the next iteration from 2018 is going to look like. But the most important thing I think is so, I don't know, can we use the word cool? It's just so important. I mean, it's groundbreaking, and not the management system, but that around the world, there are small, medium-sized, huge, large multinational companies. And we have the opportunity to help them, just like we talked in the very beginning, integrate this into business. So it's not this huge standard that's, 25 pages long, but it's simple. It's identify your hazards, assess those risks, prioritize them, figure out the ones that you want to make sure you mitigate, put proper controls in place, verify those controls are working, and if they're not, continually improve. That's all we do. And I know this is probably not very nice to say to other safety professionals, but honestly, that's all we do. And if we do that really well, we impact the business and we have safe and healthy workplaces and we reduce risk. And you can use that same check act for every risk in a business. And that's the integration. That's how simple this can be. It's just we are here. And we got to move all the way to here. And that's the change. That's where the three of us come in, right? That's where we work within our organizations or work for organizations as a consultant and advisor to be able to help them see that value. We come back to the value proposition again. So 45,001, finally, the world has said, yes, we want to be able to recognize that safety and health needs to be managed. And so through this technical committee and our chair, who is Martin Cotnam, he is awesome. He is so good. And Sally Swinchwood, who is the standards manager for all the 45,001, the technical committee. They are just leading us in just great directions and finding ways to communicate around the world to that supplier that might just have 10 people. There's a brand new, I'm excited about this. There's a brand new task group that's been developed for our technical committee, focusing on small and medium-sized enterprises, specifically the smaller versus the 500 people. That's going to have an impact on safety and health around the world. Yeah.
It's really exciting. Now, I know in Canada, most of our employers are small. A lot of times we really aim towards these large companies. Is that like that in the US as well? Do you have any, I don't know this.
Around the world, Tanya, you've hit absolutely, you're right. In the US, OSHA says 98% of the companies,
Wow.
are small, medium-sized enterprises. And so it sounds like Canada.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah, I know we're at 97 or something like that in BC alone, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I know it's in the 90s for Canada as well.
So we need to break this down, right? We need to break this down for the person that has 10 people, which I think that's a stretch, but 25 people, 50 people, they need to start having systems, and what they'll find out is that the systems they have in place, these processes for a management system, are the same processes that are used to manufacture your product, put your service out the door. Plan, do, check, act. It was Deming many moons ago. That's how the automotive industry in Japan actually, not only did they recover, they came back with vengeance, and they've done really well ever since. But they used that quality management system, plan, do, check, act model, which is an engineering model.
I love that at the 45,000, the standard there is focusing on making it simple, because there isn't a time or a day in a week that I don't have a small employer saying to me, well, Tanya, we're only 10 people. We're only 15 people. Like, I don't know how to do the safety with this little people. I mean, I get it for the big companies, but not me. Most of them really have been great at their job. They were loyal with whatever they did. They had the talent and the skill, and they're amazing at it. And now they've decided, well, wait, I can make money myself, but really don't know how to run a business. And when they get into business, they're just like, holy, and the eyes open. And then we like slam, okay, and safety, by the way. And so I think it's really great that you guys are focusing on those small companies. So if you were to speak to one of those companies today, what would you say to them?
Well, I would ask questions. I mean, I would do exactly what I do well. I would start asking them about their business and get them talking all because they love to talk about their business, and then eventually get down and tell them about your people. Tell them about what kind of value they bring. What do they do, and just get them to start thinking about their people. And I would ask them about how's COVID impacted you, and so there'll be lots of stories, and you follow the storyline. So what I would have a very hard time saying to them is, oh, if you do this, then that, because I don't know that, because I don't know their industry. I don't know their ethos. I mean, the person that started the company, if it's a small company, they actually may have been part of another company where they had a very serious accident. And if I don't ask the questions, I don't learn that. And then I can't build on that because that's where that heart comes in. Right, where they've actually felt, or perhaps they've lost somebody like their parent because of a workplace injury. So that would be how I would approach that. For small, medium-sized enterprises, it's honestly it's how you run your business. I would say to you, if you were a small company, I'd say to you, if you want to actually run a business where you create efficiencies, you create productivity, you have people that love to work for you, so therefore innovation happens, so new products, new services, trust, all fall into that. Start by using some of these processes and use just a couple of them. And then let's have a conversation and see where it takes you, because it will all impact that. And, the medium-sized company that's trying to identify, potential future leadership, worker engagement, that's how you identify them. Get them to lead a safety team, right? A team that's working around crane operations. Get them to develop the policy around lockout, tagout, energy management. That's where you start to see people that are really future potential leaders. So there's just a lot of positive outputs from management systems and getting companies to think about safety and leveraging safety, because everybody can feel it and touch that, whether they think it's good or bad, and just helping them see how that can help them run their business and why it's good for business.
I love it's so simple, really, when it comes down to just building relationships and asking questions. Because as you mentioned earlier, Kathy, it's true. Asking questions is a skill that can take you years to sort of get used to, because it's not just about, I have to ask a question, but what question am I going to ask in this moment? And so those are really important, because we really are past the generation, our generation-ish and maybe a little bit older of, when your boss says jump, you say how high, that doesn't exist anymore. And
Mhm.
as although that generation is a lot of business owners, we have these younger generation that's now starting these businesses, and they're having these conversations with their staff, and they're asking questions and getting them involved. And we're seeing them get so successful so fast by just getting their involvement and getting them to ask questions and learn about their people, because safety is about people. Business is about people. People are value. It's
Yes,
awesome, Kathy. It's just so great to have you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. It's delightful to talk to you guys, and fabulous hearing the music I love. This is it's so different. It's so, I don't know, fun.
Good.
That's good. That's what we want to hear, because it
I-
is fun.
I'm always in such a serious world, business and suits and all. And then this is really nice because we're talking about things that are important, things that really matter to all of us.
Yeah.
People, in big companies, it's the same. It matters to all of us.
So I've got one more question just before we let you go, Kathy. And I want to talk a little bit about psychological safety and mental health, because it really has rolled to the front of the class. It's really at the forefront, and everyone's speaking about it, and even more so now since COVID. And COVID it struck right around the globe. We're all affected by it in the worst way. What do you think some of the conversations are going to have to be with professional safety people, or safety professionals, I should put it that way, after COVID? So post-COVID, what will we be talking about? What should we be talking about?
Wow. Okay. So, when you talk about forward thinking and what's coming on the horizon. Some countries and definitely some companies have identified mental health as being an issue. For us, and I really got to plug Canada. Canada is the forerunner. Canada and Sweden, but Canada in particular. You all have
Wow.
had a standard on psychological health and safety at work. You've had a standard since 2013. So we in the ISO world, that TC 283, the 45,001 group, there's a standard that they've been working on for a long time, for a while. It's ISO 45,003. So all the listeners, write it down, because it's hopefully by the end of this year, it'll be published. But the document that they used as a source document for beginning all the work, because obviously you have to have global consensus, was the Canadian document. And there's
Yay, Canada!
Oh yeah. And you've got some pretty amazing people in Canada that are leading experts. I mean, really subject matter experts in this particular area. And Canada, actually, the co-convener is it's Canada and the UK, but the Canadian convener has really been leading the charge, because you all know about this. So kudos to Canada, and the ISO standard. And what makes the ISO important is it takes it beyond Canada. So what the learnings were from Canada and adding that to various, it's like 80 different countries around the world, means that information at this level, not this level, but this level from Canada can be dispersed around the world. So that harmonization, that a body of knowledge, right? That expectation of what that should look like. So that's that. I want to make sure I say that, because I think that's so important. And there's some frameworks out there that companies can use, both the Canadian standard, which they can buy right now, and then the ISO 45001. And honestly, I would advocate for both. If an organization is going to do, even when 45,003 is published, I think that Canadian standard's really good.
Yeah.
So that said, the second wave of this pandemic has been said to be mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally can feel that. I am so tired of being here.
Yeah, me too.
I am, and all of us. And then, my kids are grown, but there's people that have young children, they're schooling. I don't know if any of you guys, they're schooling their children. They're trying to do their work, and they're having to get up and do their work at 2:00 in the morning, or stay, 11:30 at night.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the middle of the day, they got to help teach their children. They got to get them here, there, and everywhere. And the world has changed. We know that it's not ever going back to how it was. I don't even know the definition of what new normal is, and we're not going to even know that till we get there.
Yeah.
But for companies, it's this concept of 24/7 safety and health. So it's this idea of, you're safe here, in your workplace, but also the workplace, and especially large companies are saying, but we want you to be whole, and you've got a whole life outside of work, right? And if you think about COVID and people working remotely, you got the whole ergonomics issue, which is
Right.
not begun to be addressed. So those will be the things that'll come from COVID. And then the whole concept of what is essential workers. So companies are going to have to put their heads around, well, okay, maybe we'll get people coming back to work. Well, no, maybe it'll be in October. But the reality is that's not actually going to happen in that way. And that's why we don't know what that new normal is, because I would venture to say that, I don't know, percentage wise, maybe 25% of the workforce around the world is never going back into a building that would be called, on-site work.
Yeah.
They will work remotely. So we in our profession have to be thinking, what does that look like? And we're geared for that. We know how to do this home office safety stuff. We've been doing this. So those are just a couple of the things, because the mental side, the mental health side, that is coming from working remotely, but also, in harassing environments.
Mm.
The whole Me Too movement has changed things in the way companies are looking at things, in terms of harassing environments, and also the diversity and inclusion with the social justice around, racism.
Yeah.
That is expanding, and it's not just one country. That's expanding around the world. So all of those things are starting to open up, and we got a long way to go on all of them.
Mhm.
But they are going to impact us, and this is the psychological health and safety. So from my perspective, I guess because I'm not a standards person, which is really shocking, but I'm really not, even though I've been so involved. I'm a people person. I think if I was to say I'm a global gal and a people person, and these systems and processes, it's my chemistry background. I love processes, but
Yeah.
these systems and processes and how they are interdependent systems thinking, that can really help a business. And I think if companies are thinking about psychological health and safety, psychosocial risk, and they identify and manage and continually improve, then we will eventually get there. But they got to start somewhere. And one last piece on that, again, it's the safety and health professionals. We are probably the biggest barrier, and we are resistance, and that's not a negative. It's just the fact we've got so many balls in the air. We're putting out so many fires. And oh, you want to add mental health? So my biggest recommendation, I say this to every audience I can talk to, is you need to find allies. You need to align with other entities in your organization. So if you're talking about mental health, you need to find out, do you have health people? Do you have human resources? What are they doing, right? And if you have EAPs, who's managing that? Might be human resources, might be procurement, might be somewhere in between. I don't know. Every company is different. But it's like you got to get those groups of people together to find out how can you best manage it in your organization. Because safety and health people, we want to take it right here. We want to have all that weight on us. But really, our biggest allies are out there, and we need to reach out to them to help us help our companies manage this psychological health and safety.
Well, it sounds like we've got a lot of work ahead of us when we come out of this. So we can all pull together and do this, make it work.
Do it together in community.
At a time.
Yeah.
One step, one person.
Well, this has been truly a lot of fun, Kathy, and so glad you joined us today. I've truly appreciated this time together, and loved your music. I love music, just generally speaking, but it's always fun to tap into another safety professional's mind and see what's making them tick musically. So thanks for being here.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you so much, Kathy.
Thank you, Tanya and Richard. I've had a blast. This has been great.
Awesome. We're so
Fantastic.
glad.
Yeah.
All right. Let me know if you need anything else.
No, I was just gonna say before she goes, we've got something else for her to listen to, but don't go anywhere.
Don't go yet. Don't leave yet.
Bye.
That's right. And we're saying that because you're a fan of music, and apparently you have a strong appreciation for our lovely country, Canada. And we're glad to hear that. We're very proud. But we always like to finish our podcast with Canadian music, focusing on musicians from BC. So we thought you might like to listen to this. And before we get into that, I just want to remind our listeners to not forget and tune in next week for our next incredible safety interview. And remember, don't let anybody ever tell you any different. Safety does indeed have a personality. We'll chat with you next week. We hope to see you then. Bye for now. This is a band called 5440 on Safety Debris.